on this snowy Sunday, upstate New York. All right, and this is a live feed provided by NASA. And the other NASA channel should be going live at 11 a.m., which is approximately a half hour from now. But this is a live feed as it approaches Earth. Splashdown is scheduled for 12:39 p.m. Eastern Time in the Pacific. So we've got a couple hours before that occurs. And now I'm going to get ready for the chats. So we've got a few of them. Okay, there's Rumble. And let's get Trovo. And let's get YouTube. So we're on 4 platforms this morning. And let's get Trovo. Okay, let's get Rumble. YouTube chat. And I can see Twitch. That is that's a beautiful image right there. That is beautiful. So again, good morning. Good Sunday morning. It is snowing here. It just started. 3 to 5 inches expected. I'll worry about the snow later on tonight and tomorrow. But it's all about Orion returning. Splashdown is scheduled for approximately 12:39 p.m. Eastern Time in the Pacific. And we'll change over the channel. As long as this feed stays up, we're staying right here. And this, like I said, this is a live stream courtesy of NASA. That is beautiful. That's like a photo I would put up and frame it. Which I'm going to take my camera off for a minute because I want to have these images that I can actually take a screenshot of it in the future. That's amazing. Isn't it beautiful, Carmen? It is stunning. It's stunning. Like I said, we have about 2 hours before it hopefully splashes down successfully in the Pacific, somewhere near you, off California coast. And hopefully they'll have a nice strong signal as this is coming in. But we will be changing over to the other feed at some point as well. But hopefully everything will go according to plan. Because this is very important. Now, even if there's issues, at least they'll learn from the issues. That's what this is about. Gathering the data, the science, and improving where they need to. um, especially with the heat shield, because it can reach up to 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit on reentry. It's going to literally be a fireball as it re-enters the atmosphere. So the guidance is very important. It has to, face just right coming in. And then, of course, the parachutes have to deploy properly. So there's a bunch of things here. And of course, there's all kinds of sensors on board because eventually the plan is the next launch will have a crew on board. So it's very important to make it's not like they're going to be doing this a few times before putting astronauts on board. This is okay, we're going to do this. Artemis 1, get Orion, go around the moon, come back to Earth, splash down, and then in a couple of years, hopefully, by 2024, 2025, they'll launch a crew to do pretty much the same thing this one did. And then in 2025, 2026, have a crew land on the moon itself. So we shall see how this goes. But this is important. This is very important. It's actually going to be part of history. But look how beautiful that looks. That is stunning. That really is stunning. It's just like I'm looking at it. It's how precious we are here. It really is. We are precious here. It's amazing. So like I said, we'll continue to monitor this as it comes back. Like I said, it is snowing here. I just hope it doesn't get too crazy. Oh, it's not really doing anything right now. Thank gosh, because I don't feel like going nuts removing snow. But we will be watching. I mean, I can just put some nice, calm music on right now. Of course, I can't because I'm on certain platforms streaming. But boy, I could sit back and relax to some nice, relaxing music. And look at this. And this is something you definitely want to look on your screen, full screen. It's just stunning. This would really look good on a big screen because I'm looking at it without my camera on it, just the image itself and on this monitor, and it looks awesome. The view. Can you imagine the crew on board experiencing this? The humans that are going to be going to the moon, land on the moon, then hopefully, God willing, come back to Earth, and just that whole experience, the views, the experience. I mean, my gosh, that's going to be unbelievable. That's incredible, that view. Like I said, I'm going to remove my camera image because I want to just get the beauty of the whole scene here. And just take it in. Because that is stunning. To me, it is beautiful. So for anyone who may be joining, splashdown is to occur hopefully at approximately 12:39 p.m. Eastern time. So that's a little under 2 hours. Actually, it's actually 2 hours from now. That'd be an awesome image for like I said, for putting that up, frame it. That's a cool picture right there. The NASA coverage. This is NASA channel. The media channel is probably going to start covering this with commentators at 11 a.m. Eastern. So, but I am not changing this feed. As long as the signal stays, I'm staying right here for now. It is, oh, that'd be a great screensaver too. Absolutely. Wallpaper. Like I said, if you see this, like here, for example, on Verizon, we have the channel for YouTube. This is something you want to see on your TV, on a bigger screen. It's just amazing. It really is amazing. Now, obviously, this thing is probably moving at a. I have no idea. I didn't look it up. I did look it up yesterday, but I'm not sure that's the correct number. 20,000 miles per hour. So what I want to do, I would love to do, is I'm gonna put my mouse around the edge, and hopefully that'll disappear. There it goes. Now, when I move the mouse again in about 20 minutes, it should definitely look even larger on the screen as it gets closer to the Earth. You can see it closing in. But you could see it, you could literally see it from the point that I started streaming, that the Earth is larger on the screen as it approaches. This is, I can't believe how beautiful that looks on a full screen. Look at that. Stunning. This could inspire a lot of people just watching something like this, the future generations, for space exploration. It really can. Just looking at this, and I want to be a part of that in the future. How could you not want to be a part of that? I'm looking at certain points. Like if you see, you can actually see it. Let me just move the mouse. It's gonna, if you look at how this looks toward here, you can see how it's expanding because it's getting closer. You can see, if you keep an eye on certain points, it's amazing. Now this is, I'm gonna just put this up a little bit. This is the live coverage that's going to start at 11 a.m. in 16 minutes. But right now it's about this. Because I'd rather look at that all day long. It's just beautiful. It's stunning. This would be a great view as long as they can keep the feed as it approaches closer. I'm sure they're going to lose the signal eventually. for multiple reasons. But right now, this is the view. Let me see what the heck that was. Okay. Getting all kinds of messages. Okay, that's all good. Anyway, good morning. In approximately 1 hour and 55 minutes, hopefully, splashdown will occur in the Pacific Ocean off California as Orion approaches Earth for re-entry. It is, like I said, this has to be on full screen to appreciate this image. This is stunning. Stunning. And NASA's coverage with commentary begins in approximately 14 minutes. I wonder what the preparation is right now. I wish they had a live view of that. The ships that are in position for the recovery. I'm curious what the weather conditions are. But can you imagine this thing is going to heat up to close to 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit during re-entry? Literally a fireball. Literally. That would be stunningly beautiful in itself. And hopefully everything goes to plan. You could imagine what people would say. Oh, I could just hear it. This is phony. This is fake. It's staged. I'm looking at certain points to see how it's closing in. Ever so slowly, but it's not slow. It's actually like I said yesterday, I did the research. I think the speed is at 20,000 miles per hour. It's moving. And it's got to slow down, obviously, to a few hundred miles per hour when the parachutes deploy. I'm going to actually grab the links if anybody wants to. You could just search it on YouTube. You'll find these streams. It's not really hard to find. Just search for Artemis, Orion, splashdown, and you'll find it. And NASA, of course, provided courtesy of NASA. Now, this is a public domain situation here where they really don't go after you for sharing because it's meant for public consumption. Be interesting to see it when they're actually moving the craft, realigning it for re-entry. It's going to be interesting to see how long this feed lasts. Hopefully, they stay with this feed and the other NASA channel will do the commentating and not interfere with this because that's going to be a lot of educational information, background on Artemis again. They'll probably do the whole discussion on what the mission was about. Then they'll talk about re-entry, splashdown, all the specifics involved. But I really want to see this. Now we can, matter of fact, I'm going to do that right now. We can listen. I'm going to do that right now. See if I could get it. It should be right here. So right now on the screen, in 8 minutes, NASA Live, Artemis 1, Orion's re-entry and splashdown coverage begins. And that would be, I'll put the link in the chats. In Rumble, Trovo, YouTube, Twitch. And there it's in Trovo, it's in Rumble. We'll put it in YouTube. And now we're going to put it in Twitch. This is the feed that's going to start in about 7 minutes. Okay, it's in all 4 platforms. I've got a lot on my screen right now. Let me get all these pop-up chats up, just in case. So there are the links to the stream that's going to begin in about 6 minutes. But right now, I'm going to stay focused on this. And again, good morning on this snowy Sunday in the Hudson Valley, New York. 3 to 5 inches today. How nice. It's all good. This is what makes the day right here. I am definitely going to check the other stream and pick up the audio while we watch this, as long as this signal continues. But it is beautiful. That is one heck of an image right there. And this just came on so fast, I forgot to make coffee. I need my coffee. All right, let me get a pop up for Twitch. Okay, we got a pop up. I'm going to now monitor the other channel in 4 minutes and 40 seconds. We should have live coverage with commentary. So what it says in the description, there's a lot of people waiting, by the way, to watch this. On December 11th, the Artemis 1 mission will conclude with the entry, descent, and splashdown of the Orion spacecraft. After 25 and a half days in space and a 1.3 million mile journey around the moon, Orion is expected to splash down in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of Florida at 12:39 p.m. Eastern Time. The Exploration Ground Systems Recovery Team from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida, working with the U.S. Navy, will recover the spacecraft. So that's what's happening today. Look at that. Who said it, Carmen? This would make some great wallpaper. Or screensaver. That is one heck of an image. Now, their coverage begins in 3 minutes. 3 minutes from now. This is allegedly, supposedly, a live feed. Artemis 1 live feed from Orion spacecraft. Official NASA broadcast. In about 2.5 minutes, they're going to start the coverage on the other NASA channel. The links are in all the chats. Now I can't see the chats because I got too many windows open on my computer for right now, because I want to get ready to start this up when it begins in 1 minute and 55 seconds. You have to see the number just increasing. The people that are waiting to watch this stream. It was 12,000 5 minutes ago. It's 17,000 now. Which, I guess it's Sunday morning. I don't know. I would think there would be more people watching. All right, we got about 1 minute and 20 seconds. By the way, Mark D'Antonio is live tonight with Daryl and Tara for Sky Tour on kgradb.com at 6 p.m. Eastern. All the other shows are live as well tonight. All right, here we go. NASA's starting their coverage. It actually says starting soon. Whoa, here we go. camera itself is moving the Orion, or it's realigning itself. That is so awesome looking. I have to say, that's awesome. All right, now. I'm going to kill that audio. So they're actually carrying the same audio stream. Here it goes. Let me see if I can do something right now. Try to shrink this up. It's going to be hard to do it without ruining the image.
Feet, down at 2, 25 feet, feels good, down at 2, 20 feet, feels good, 20 feet, going down at 2, 10 feet, going down at 2, 10 feet, 10 feet, pat contact, 10 feet, pat contact, stop push, engine stop, engine arm, proceed, engine stop, engine arm, proceed, control ahead, hold, pings auto, boat control ahead, hold, pings auto. The Challenger has landed. Houston, the Challenger has landed. You can tell America that Challenger is a torque.
I got some echo going out from one of the networks channels. Right there.
50 years ago today, Apollo 17 Commander
I gotta kill one of these audios.
Commander Gene Cernan and guided Challenger pilot
That one's off.
landing on a guided Challenger to a pinpoint landing on a barren rock-strewn area of the moon.
This
A half
one.
century later, NASA's newest moon explorer, the Orion spacecraft, is barreling its way back home after circumnavigating the moon.
I've got 4 platforms running, so
distant retrograde orbit. Now less than 2 hours away from splashing down in the Pacific Ocean west of Baja California to complete its shakedown mission that has opened a new era of deep space exploration. Good morning from the Artemis Flight Control Room here at the Johnson Space Center in Houston.
Enjoy, everyone.
Mission Control, where the entry team of flight controllers is on duty, ready to bring Orion home to complete a 25-and-a-half-day mission. As he was for the launch of Orion more than 25 days ago, NASA Flight Director Judd Freeling is leading the entry team here in the White Flight Control Room. The target for Orion is growing larger in the field of view, moment by moment. This is a live view of the Earth from a distance of 15,000 miles away. About 3 hours and 40 minutes ago, Orion conducted the final major maneuver of its mission, a return trajectory.
Yeah, that's the one that was bleeding through. So let's get that back. I knew it was something. So let's do that again. There's multiple windows open here. Okay. And I'm definitely going to have to redo everything I just did. But we got to get that audio right. So now I'm going to resize it all over again. And put this volume on.
It was determined that the raise maneuver was not required. That could still change following crew module, service module separation, but at the moment, the raise maneuver will not be required. The major objective of this mission is to test the spacecraft's heat shield against the searing heat of entry, where temperatures will build up to around 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit around Orion, half as hot as the outer surface of the sun, twice as hot as the temperatures endured by returning space shuttles and other crew vehicles. Orion will perform what is called a skip entry, dipping into the atmosphere, then lifting out of the atmosphere and dipping back in like a flat rock skimming across a pond. This will provide aerobraking for the vehicle, will help to dissipate some of the vehicle's inertia, and will provide data needed in the future to select multiple splashdown sites for crewed missions. We are expecting 2 periods during entry when the buildup of heat-generated plasma around Orion will block communications and the receipt of data with flight controllers here in Houston. The first blackout should begin around 11:20 a.m. Central Time for just under 5 minutes, right around the time of peak heating on Orion, as it travels about 25 times the speed of sound. The second blackout period is expected around 11:29 a.m. Central Time for just under 3 minutes, right after the skip entry maneuver is complete. About 5 minutes after we regain communications with Orion, the pre-programmed commands stored on board will trigger the deployment of 3 parachutes at the top of Orion.
Good morning, Big Dog.
To pull the forward bay cover off of the crew module. That will initiate the sequential deployment of 2 drogue chutes and 3 pilot parachutes, followed by the 3 large main chutes to slow down Orion, enabling it to gently splash down in the Pacific. The current splashdown time, 11:39 and 42 seconds a.m. Central Time, 9:39 and 42 seconds a.m. Pacific Time. We'll be talking more about those parachutes shortly. The weather forecast at the splashdown site west of Baja California is excellent. The Spaceflight Meteorology Group here at the Johnson Space Center has just issued a forecast calling for scattered clouds at 1,700 feet, winds peaking to about 9 knots with periodic wave heights of about 5 feet. That is all within flight rule limits, and it should be a splendid day for Orion's homecoming.
Hello, Pan. My screens, I've got 4 chats going on, so I want to be able to see all of them.
Out in the Pacific, aboard the prime recovery ship, the USS Portland, embedded with the Kennedy Space Center's Exploration Ground Systems Recovery Team and the U.S. Navy, is my colleague from the Kennedy Space Center, Daryl Nail. Daryl, good morning to you, and as they say in the Navy, give us a sit rep on preparations out there.
Enjoy, everyone.
Well, good morning to you, Rob, and that's right. We're live on the deck just outside the bridge here on the USS Portland with a fantastic view of the area of splashdown. I just spoke with the recovery team. They say we are currently 5 miles away from the splashdown location right here in the Pacific Ocean. The location, as you mentioned, just off the coast of Baja, Mexico. We got the great weather report, seas, as you mentioned, 4 to 5 feet. We're looking good there. Let me show you the bridge deck where we are currently positioned. This is looking forward for the ship. I talked to Captain John Ryan, who says that he currently has the ship in a racetrack going around the location near where splashdown is, just upwind of it, so that the debris that comes down, that being the crew module and the parachutes, the forward bay cover, when it separates, will be all downwind of us. Now, preparations are already underway. We can hear the helicopter engines running, so we want to take you to a live view of the flight deck. This is towards the back of the ship, where just 5 minutes ago, the Navy started the engines on 2 of the 3 Navy MH-60s, or Nighthawk helicopters, that will be used for the operation. There you see them on your screen. The 2 helicopters on the left side of the flight deck, they will be involved in the operation. The third to the right is a backup helicopter. Now, one of the helicopters will use the Navy's infrared targeting system, which will start looking for Orion at an altitude of about 50,000 feet. should be able to quickly lock on to Orion's heat shield, which should be still very hot after reaching 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit on the heat of reentry. The second helicopter will track the forward bay cover, a 1,000-pound, 9.5-foot wide titanium cover on top of Orion, which protects the parachutes during the heat of reentry. It is jettisoned to allow them to come out. Now, NASA's plan going in was to recover it, but they've made an adjustment due to the seas and the limitations of a small boat crane needed to lift it out of the water. Both helicopters, if you can see just to the left of that helicopter at the bottom of your screen, have GSS cameras mounted to them. These are ultra high def cameras to record 8K resolution video for engineering purposes. Now, with those helicopters just minutes away from flying out, let's take a look underneath this very flight deck. You can see into the well deck, and this is the multi-purpose capability of this vessel, the USS Portland. Down on the well deck is where the final phase of recovery will happen. 2 teams of Navy divers are preparing to launch the small boats. You see them at the bottom of your screen, just partially protruding there at the bottom. Those are inflatable boats that the Navy will use. 6 in all will pre-position themselves in the open sea to recover debris from the descent operation and then, of course, secure the Orion crew module itself. The Navy dive team will also take above water and underneath water photography of the heat shield before the crew module is moved. This is for all engineering purposes so they can see it freshly returned from space. Once the divers have Orion stabilized with tow ropes,
look at the panels readjusting to get the sunlight. Look at that.
That is the cradle.
That's amazing.
And the winch lines will pull into position and put it right down on top of that cradle. They will flood that deck with water, roughly about 6 feet, and then with a careful choreography of winch line and lines being pulled and maintained by sailors, they'll put it in position for its ride back to San Diego. Now, coming up, we'll speak to one of the Navy divers who will be in the water helping. In fact, he's on deck standing by in just a few minutes. He's ready to go into the water. We'll get some words from him before he goes out on his assignment. Looking good on the ship right now. Rob, we'll send it back to you in Houston.
Thanks, Daryl. And again, a live view from Orion as it continues its pinpoint journey back towards its splashdown site, not far from where you are out in the Pacific. We will be going back to Daryl Nail on the USS Portland frequently during the course of today's coverage. Orion is wrapping up, as we said earlier.
Look at it. It's realigning itself. Check it out.
That will have spanned 1.4 million miles, having flown further away from Earth than any human-rated spacecraft designed to return humans to Earth. And, of course, the big test that's coming up, the ultimate test of its heat shield that will repel temperatures that will build up around the base of Orion to about 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
Notice the panels
peak heating
moving
as Orion barrels back into the Earth's atmosphere.
to get the sunlight.
It has been an incredibly successful mission for the Orion spacecraft. We'll be talking to a variety of people about all that, officials and managers and engineers throughout the course of our coverage today. But for the moment, let's take a visual and interactive look at this mission with NASA's Philip Hargrove, who will use the moon board to explain it all.
Yes, welcome to the moon board here at the Apollo Saturn V Center. It's been a super exciting month since the Artemis 1 launch. So let's take a look back at everything that happened just a few miles away from where I'm standing right now. Now, on November 16th at 1:47 a.m., the SLS lifted off from Launch Pad 39B here at Kennedy Space Center, and it put on an incredible show for everybody watching here from the Space Coast. I can't even describe to you how amazing it was to watch that core stage. Those solid rocket boosters provide over 8 million pounds of thrust at liftoff. Now, those boosters and the core stage got us going from 0 to over 17,000 miles per hour in just about 8 minutes. And then once all that propellant was depleted, the responsibility was passed on to the interim cryogenic propulsion stage. Now, the first job of the ICPS was to perform a perigee raise maneuver. And this means that we're getting into a low Earth circular orbit that allows us to deploy those solar panels, start harvesting energy, and do systems checkouts to make sure that we are ready for our journey. And we stayed in that orbit for about 30 minutes, and then we did our translunar injection burn. This is the primary responsibility of the ICPS because it gives us the energy to escape low Earth orbit and commits us on a path out to the moon. Now, once it completed that burn, the ICPS separated from the Orion, and it performed one final burn to completely leave the Earth-Moon system. And after doing that, Orion was on its way out to the moon. So it spent about 4 days heading out towards the moon. And then we quickly dipped in about 60 miles above the surface of the moon and did an outbound powered flyby. Now, that powered flyby means that we're taking advantage of the speed we already have, the gravity of the moon, and the energy we get from the service module's engines in order to target our orbit. And the orbit that we were targeting is called a DRO, or a distant retrograde orbit. And what that means is that instead of moving counterclockwise relative to the Earth like the moon does naturally, we are moving clockwise. So we're going in this opposite direction. That's what retrograde means. And distant means that we are going farther away than we have with any human spacecraft before. We're orbiting about 38,000 miles above the surface of the moon. And this is a really convenient orbit because we're able to stay there without having to use a ton of fuel for station keeping. And it also provides a safe, efficient path back home when we're ready. So this allowed us to learn how to operate in deep space, one of the core tenets of this mission. And then once we were ready, we started our trip back home. So we performed one more powered flyby, this time targeting our return, where we lit up those engines as we dipped close to the surface of the moon. And then we began our return transit, which took about 7 days, and that leads us to today. So next time we'll talk a bit more about what that return looks like and what our entry is actually going to look like. But until then, back to you.
Thank you, Philip. And again, a live view of Orion closing in on planet Earth, now about 11,000 miles away from Earth, as it continues a very, very precise trajectory for a splashdown that is scheduled at 11:39 and 42 seconds a.m. Central Time this morning. For Orion, launch from the Kennedy Space Center occurred on November 16th on the world's most powerful rocket, the Space Launch System. The first outbound powered flyby of the moon was performed 5 days later on November 21st, dipping to within about 81 miles of the lunar surface. That placed Orion on a very precise trajectory for its ultimate goal, that racetrack trajectory called the distant retrograde orbit, that would allow Orion the time and the space environment needed to test its mettle. 4 days later, Orion executed an engine firing to enter into that orbit, and the next day, Orion surpassed the record set during Apollo 13 52 years ago for the greatest distance ever traveled by a human-rated spacecraft designed to return humans to the Earth. On November 28th, Orion reached its farthest distance from the Earth, some 268,000 miles, before departing the distant retrograde orbit on December 1st. And this past Monday, Orion conducted a 3-minute, 27-second engine firing behind the moon to whip around Earth's closest neighbor for the final leg of its flight, passing to within 80 miles of the surface, turning for home, and its splashdown that is scheduled just 1 hour, 21 minutes, 44 seconds from now. The initial mission of the Artemis I program was always designed to be a test flight, wringing out all of the systems of the Space Launch System and the Orion spacecraft, and for more than 25 days it did just that, setting the stage for a crew to board an Orion vehicle for a trip around the moon in 2 years. So with that, out in the Pacific, where Orion will be splashing down not long from now, we're going to go back here in a moment to Daryl Nail, who's standing by with one of the first persons that will actually be in the water to execute the recovery and the securing of the Orion spacecraft. Daryl?
That's right, Rob, and his name is Wayne Shearer, and he is the Navy diver first class aboard boat number 2. He is the lead on one of the 2 small boats called Cricks, which are essentially small inflatable Navy boats. He's just about 20 or so minutes away from getting into that boat. Thank you, Wayne, for coming up here and making some time for us to tell us about the operation today.
Of course, sir.
So tell me exactly how your team goes about securing this spacecraft after it comes back from space, splashes down the water just a few miles from us.
Well, sequence of events are going to go splashdown, wait 2 hours. We're going to do a hazard analysis, make sure there's no gas coming off of it. We're going to come up, take those pictures like you said earlier for those engineering purposes. Once that's done, then we put the what's called a pony collar on it, and then basically it's a sequence of events of pulling all those ropes out like you said earlier and pulling it into the well deck. Easy day.
Easy day, and we know that there's certainly going to be some challenges, right? Seas are 4 to 5 foot currently, which is within your limit. Let's take a look now underneath the well deck to the boats that are currently being prepared. You're really literally going to be going down here and right to that boat after we conclude our interview. How will you manage the 4 to 5 foot seas with a bobbing spacecraft and bobbing inflatable boat with your team?
Well, this is just another day in the park for us. You know, we've trained for the last year and a half for this. We've been in worse seas than this, recovering anything under the water. It's just different. Instead of recovering something from under the water, we're going to recover something that fell from the sky.
You can see on our screen, those are the tip edges of your 2 inflatable boats. I imagine you'll be positioned somewhere towards the front or back?
I'll be positioned toward the middle of the boat.
Towards the middle of the boat. And as you do this operation, have you thought about just the importance of it, reflecting that it is you who will be one of the first people to put your hands on a spacecraft that just came back from space?
I mean, definitely, this is probably every kid's little dream, or every little kid's dream, to be able to do exactly what I'm doing today, you know, and I think I can speak for the whole dive team that we're honored to be part of history and to be part of something so monumentous, and just ready and excited to go out and do this.
On a personal note, you and I were talking about how you got into the Navy and the dive team. What was it that motivated you to become a Navy diver, and then ultimately, now that you're on this operation, looking back at that choice?
Well, February 2003 from Leesville, Louisiana, and I heard a loud boom outside my window one morning, and I ran outside and talked to my dad, and a few hours later we're watching the news, and unfortunately what we heard was the USS Columbia break up. So, you know, it was not a great thing to hear, but it kind of jump-started my career of like, hey, what do I want to do? And I wanted to be out there to help people, and the Navy just kind of fell into my lap. And, you know, 20 years later, to be able to be part of history of the first next thing we've flown into space like that is absolutely a dream come true for myself.
Certainly a tragedy for NASA, one that has created many lessons learned for our agency, but interesting that it led you into this.
Looks like they're having technical issues with their audio.
They have around the world.
And briefly, Wayne, as you look out here to the Pacific Ocean, where you will literally be in the water in just a few minutes, will you be sharing any words with your team?
Good luck, be safe, and let's be part of history.
Little over
wish
an
you the
hour,
best.
15 minutes.
Wayne, thank you for taking the time, and good luck out there.
Thanks, sir.
Rob, we'll send it back to you.
Dude, we can't hear you, bro.
Thanks, Daryl. It looks like a great day out in the Pacific, west of Baja, California, where Orion is headed. And you can't beat this view, though. The view of the Earth, where Orion is headed, tried and true, on a pinpoint course for a splashdown just 1 hour and 16 minutes from now. After Orion enters the Earth's atmosphere at the conclusion of this 25-and-a-half-day mission, the spacecraft is going to rely on a very heavily tested parachute system to slow down its speed and allow for a very gentle splashdown. Koki Machin, the chief engineer of Orion's parachute assembly system, now describes the process and the path to the certification of the parachute system. A series of 11 parachutes will be deployed in sequential fashion. A very dramatic return to Earth lying ahead for the Orion spacecraft.
Our design is almost exactly the Apollo design. The shape of the mains, the shape of the drogues. The only major difference is we are bigger. Apollo weighed roughly 13,500 pounds, and we weigh 22 and change thousand pounds. And so our parachutes are larger because we have more energy to take out of the system, and our parachutes are stronger. So at a fundamental level, all round parachutes are alike. The Orion system has drogue parachutes that initially decelerate the system, and because they're deployed at a much higher velocity, they're made of ribbons. The ribbons can take the fluttering associated with high velocity deployments much better than a solid canopy can. And once the system slows down, it deploys the mains. The mains are much closer to a personnel chute. They're called ring sails. The major difference would be that a personnel chute could be 28 to 30 feet in diameter, and a CPAS main is 116 feet in diameter. So the Orion parachutes are what we refer to as hybrid parachutes. The drag surfaces are nylon, but then the structural grid, how we take
And good morning,
the drag
Christopher.
on that nylon surface and transmit it down to the vehicle is made of Kevlar. And Kevlar is quite a bit stronger and stiffer, and it just completely different material than the drag surfaces are. So the CPAS system is designed to safely recover the crew with just 2 mains deployed. The problem with deploying the backup chute after you deploy the first 2 chutes is you have to negotiate the chute that's already out there. So what we chose to do, and what Apollo chose to do, was to deploy the backup chute with the main system itself. And as a result, we get a much softer landing when all the parachutes work properly. But both systems were designed to land with just 2 main parachutes functioning. When we did the pad abort test at White Sands, I was quite scared. But I wasn't scared for our system. I was scared for the repositioning after the rockets took off the capsule and repositioned it. It was perfect. That thing reoriented like it was on rails. And I swear to you, this huge relief came over me when the cover came off, because I thought, wow, we're not done, but we're done. I know this system's going to work.
And there again, the view of the Earth. We're about 33 minutes away from the first big milestone. That will be the separation of the crew module and the service module, signaling the beginning of Orion's entrance into the home stretch of its 1.4 million mile journey. With us at this hour is the Deputy Associate Administrator for Exploration Systems, Kathy Kerner. Kathy, thanks for joining us this morning. It's great to see you.
Glad to be here.
You know, this is a little bit of deja vu for you. You were a flight director in this room for a number of years. Your thoughts as Orion approaches the end of this maiden flight?
Yeah, certainly a lot of history in human spaceflight has been made in this room, and we're making some more today, and really excited. There's a lot of energy in the room, and it's very familiar, but it's also very different as we step into this next episode in human exploration.
You know, the mission had its trials and tribulations getting off the ground, but once it did, so far, so good. The mission has exceeded expectations in many areas. Of course, the post-flight analysis is yet to come, but from the top level, the 1,000-foot level, looking down at the mission, what are your thoughts about what has been accomplished in setting the stage for a crewed mission 2 years from now?
Absolutely, this has been a phenomenal mission thus far. If you asked me to grade it, I'd give us an A+. I think that the work that has been performed both by the Exploration Ground Systems team, the SLS team, and the Orion team has been fantastic. We've been learning how the spacecraft operates. We've been learning how to fly this amazing machine, and it's gone so well that we've actually been able to add tests during the mission that help expand the envelope that we're going to be able to use to operate the spacecraft once we have crew on board.
The major objective of the mission lies ahead. That's the rigorous testing of the heat shield, as we've just seen in our features. 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit building up around the spacecraft, twice as much as space shuttles endured when they re-entered the Earth's atmosphere. How do you think it's all going to fare, and what then needs to be done to analyze the performance of the heat shield in certifying that we are good to put a crew on board in a couple of years?
So this test, this is the primary objective of this test mission, but we've got a lot more objectives that we need to accomplish between now and when we launch crew. We have an environmental test that we need to conduct of the entire integrated spacecraft once we get the environmental and life support systems on board. So this is just one of many tests that we have going forward, and one of many analyses that we need to do with all of the post-flight data that we retrieve from the spacecraft.
We opened up the broadcast paying homage to Apollo 17 landing on the moon 50 years ago today. It's only coincidence that this happened, but it seems very appropriate, doesn't it?
It does. It seems fitting that we would honor Apollo with the new legacy of the Artemis generation and this mission today.
Thanks very much, Kathy. Kathy Kerner, the Deputy Associate Administrator for Exploration Systems, and we're nearing the end of the home stretch here of this very first mission.
Thanks, Rob. Great to be here.
Again, good morning to those that are tuning in.
And as the Earth grows larger and larger in the field of view, Orion continues its trek back home with crew module, service module separation just 30 minutes from now. Entry interface just 20 minutes after that. In the meantime, let's go back out to the Pacific, the destination for Orion today, where Darrell Nail from the Kennedy Space Center, again embedded with the Exploration Ground Systems and Recovery teams, is standing by with Shannon Walker, NASA astronaut.
Well operations. All hands on the wall, staying clear of wing walls, vehicle storage areas.
That's right, Rob. Shannon Walker, NASA astronaut, has been on board since we departed on Wednesday to come out to the site. Thank you for being here to take some time to talk to us amidst this important operation to recover the Orion crew module.
Absolutely. I am happy to be here.
So tell me a little bit about the reason you're here and what you're doing as you observe the operations today.
Yeah, of course, we do not have crew on this capsule, but I am here because the next Artemis flight will have crew on it. And so we are starting the process of assessing how we're going to operate with crew. How do we extract the crew from the capsule? How do we get them to the ship safely? How do we do all the medical checks we want to do? So we're starting the process of getting ready for the next Artemis mission.
And with this capsule being recovered today, it will be brought back. I imagine that the astronauts will be very interested in the data that comes off of it. This particular capsule has sensors all over it, more than any future capsule will have.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is going to tell us what we need to do, change, modify for the next Artemis mission.
On all flight quarter stations. The ship expects to read manned flight quarters at 0945.
And what you're hearing are some announcements from the ship PA informing the crew at what stage in the operation we're at. I should mention that we just had helicopters, the MH-60s at the back of the flight deck just launched off and are in flight now to the recovery area. They play an important role here. Shannon, continuing now with our interview, when you look at the operation as a whole, they're currently trying to determine how the astronauts will be recovered. That's not happening today.
That's right.
But that will have to be integrated into the operation. Do they come off immediately after the crew splashes down? Or there's an idea kicking around there to have them stay in the capsule and come to the back of the ship. What are your thoughts on both of those? What are the pluses and minuses on those?
Well, certainly the plus of having the crew come off immediately is that the crew is not staying in the capsule for an extended period of time. There'll be a time when we'll have to turn off the cooling in the capsule, which would mean the crew will start getting very warm in their suits. So it's better to get them off before that. Also, you'll probably see later the operations in the well deck. There are a lot of waves in there, and it's probably not going to be a fun ride for the crew to be in there. So you're right, we're looking at it. The actual, let's see, next summer, we're going to have another test run. We'll be out on a ship, and we will be looking at all the different methodologies for getting crew off the capsule.
And may I ask what your particular favorite would be? I mean, I think you've already kind of indicated you're leaning more towards let's get off the ship.
Off immediately. Yeah, so I think we will probably, now don't quote me on this, but we'll probably extract the crew via helicopter from the capsule and helicopter them over to the ship.
And as an astronaut, just briefly, when you come back from space, physically, you're in a condition where how would you describe it, physically and mentally?
Yeah, so when we come back, we consider a crew deconditioned. While on the space station, for example, we have lots of exercise, so we're really strong when we come back. It is still a big adjustment to being in Earth's gravity again. The lunar missions is kind of in the middle between what we did in the shuttle days and what we're doing on the space station. So we don't know exactly how the crew's going to feel, but they're going to be exhausted, and so their balance may be off a little bit. So it's better just to get them out of the capsule. As far as the mental side goes, I found that when I am back on Earth, it's just a huge sigh of relief in that somebody else is worrying all the details and I can just sit and relax a little bit.
Well, we appreciate you being here. Thank you for all the insight. You're doing a great job of staying balanced amidst the 4 to 5 foot seas as you see the horizon going up and down, right?
It is definitely a challenge.
Thank you very much, Shannon. Rob, we'll send it back to you in Houston.
Thanks, Daryl. Thank you, Shannon, and happy sailing out there as we continue to watch this scintillating view of the Earth as we are just 1 hour, 5 minutes away from splashdown. Now, as Shannon Walker alluded to in that interview with Daryl Nail on the USS Portland, we're going to be on the air here for a couple of hours after splashdown, while a number of flight objectives and test objectives are being conducted, data gathering on the Orion spacecraft. But the whole recovery issue to get Orion into the well deck of the USS Portland is no small feat. Melissa Jones, who is the landing director and the recovery director from the Kennedy Space Center, has worked tirelessly to choreograph all of the elements of that recovery operation. Let's take a look now at how Orion will be recovered.
Today we are aboard the USS John P. Murtha, and behind me is a mock-up capsule of the Orion crew module, and we are training the team to be ready to do Artemis 1 recovery operations. My role as the NASA Recovery Director is to lead the interagency team that will recover the capsule. Ever since the Apollo program, NASA and the Navy have worked together to recover NASA's capsules in the water. So one of the huge benefits of working with the Navy is the fact that they're operational and we leverage their core competencies to bring the flight hardware and the crew back safely from the moon. On the Artemis 1 recovery day, my job will be to direct the team through the integrated operation to recover the capsule. The ship will get to the recovery location 24 hours before, and we will start launching weather balloons. And that data will go back to Houston and will help inform where we splash down. A couple hours before splashdown, the Navy launches small boats off of the knuckle boom crane, and helicopters will take off and they will do their circles in the air, and they are waiting for the capsule to re-enter so that they can get good data and photo imagery of the capsule on its way back to Earth. Once that is done and we splash down, we will safe the capsule, approach the capsule, attach lines to the capsule, and recover it into the well deck of the ship. Artemis 1 recovery operations will take about 5 hours to perform all of the work we need to do because we are gathering data so that we can fly crew mission on Artemis 2. When Artemis 1 splashes down, it's going to be the culmination of all of the hard work that we've put in as a team. It's going to be an amazing feeling, hearing that we've met Earth's interface and that we can see 3 good main parachutes. And when we hear splashdown, I'm going to get goosebumps all over me.
And again, that whole recovery operation will take several hours. We are going to remain on the air for at least 2 hours or so after splashdown so that we can bring you all the information regarding the initial safing of the vehicle and the test objectives that the flight control team here in Houston, led by Flight Director Judd Freeling, will be absorbing all of that data, mostly about the thermal conditions of the spacecraft, which will have come through some 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit in entry. And with us at this moment is the man who is going to be watching all of that very, very carefully, John Kowal, who's the Orion Thermal Protection System Manager. John, your big moment is lying ahead here. The plunge back into the Earth's atmosphere. This is the moment of truth to test the heat shield. What kind of thermal environment are you expecting for Orion as it makes its way into the Earth's atmosphere and then back through the atmosphere itself?
Yeah, so, as you mentioned, 5,000 degrees on the ship, but to back that up, how do we get there? So that vehicle still has all that energy that the launch rocket put into it during that first beautiful launch, right? So that gets converted into velocity. So we're going at 25,000 miles per hour, which is, how do you even fathom what that means? It's 7 miles per second. Wow. So all that energy, enough to power 4,000, 5,000 homes in a day, we have to get rid of it. And how do we do that? The vehicle comes slamming into the atmosphere, starts trying to push the air out of the way. That air is pushing back. The pressures go up. The temperatures go up. We're talking upwards of around 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit in the flow field. So that energy goes into the flow field, and then the flow field wants to give it back to the surface of the TPS. So that's what the TPS is going to see, or what the heat shield is going to see, and that's what pushes it up to 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
What kind of testing was required throughout the course of the preparations for Orion to prepare the vehicle for launch that made you confident that it could withstand the rigors of this sort of environment?
Yeah, there's been a lot of testing. I mean, we've been at this for since the end of the shuttle program. If you think back to that system, that was a reusable system, we had kind of been out of the business of these ablation materials for quite a while, since Apollo. So we had to train a whole new generation of engineers on developing that type of system, as well as getting the materials back. So there was a lot of testing in arc jets. That's the primary way that you test these types of materials. You can create these temperatures. It's like a wind tunnel with a lightning bolt going down the center of it, and that's how you create this high temperature plasma, and that gets impinged onto the test article. So we do a lot of materials testing. We've done quite a bit of testing of the system. You know, even though we're using the same material, the AV coat that they used in Apollo, it's in a different form. And so we made it into blocks. Those blocks have seams that have to be filled. Those seams are always one of the areas that you want to test the most, is because that's where the problems happen. And so we've done a lot of testing there in the thermal. And also structurally, we've had to do a lot of testing to see how the AVCoat blocks interact with the structure underneath, and make sure that it's all going to hold up to those loads.
And John, it's about 11 minutes or so from the time of entry interface at an altitude of about 400,000 feet until we come out of that second blackout period. So that's going to be a very interesting time, a sort of a nail-biting time, if you will. But after the vehicle splashes down and is back at the Kennedy Space Center in a few weeks for post-flight analysis, what are the sorts of things that you and your engineering team will be looking for to give it a passing grade in preparation for putting a crew on board a couple of years from now?
Yeah, there's a couple things that we look at. I break it into two different categories. The first is the flight data. We have instrumentation embedded in the heat shield at a number of locations. So we measure temperatures, we measure heat rates, we measure pressures, stresses. All that data will tell us how the material actually performed in that flight environment. It will also help us to inform our computer modeling methods, and that's another thing that we need to make sure that it's performing how we thought it was going to perform, so that we can use those models in the future, to predict for other missions. Now, the other thing we'll do is we'll be looking at the hardware itself. The instrumentation, you only get measurements where you put that instrument, of course, right? But looking at the heat shield, just looking at it, the big picture, you can see the streamlines, you can see how the flow was going across the heat shield, you can see where boundary layer transition may have occurred. So there's so much to just visually see, and then we'll be taking samples of the heat shield, we'll be taking that material out and looking at how much had ablated, looking at the char thickness, the density gradients as you go through as the material burned off, and comparing that to what our models have predicted. And again, that'll help us to be able to validate and correlate our models further.
Very good. It's going to be a very important time for the engineers, of course, and we'll see how Orion fares here in the next hour or so. John Kowal, Orion's Thermal Protection System Manager, thanks very much for joining us this morning.
Sure. Thank you.
Now just 16 and a half minutes away from the separation of the crew module from the European service module that will begin a trip hammer series of events as Orion begins the process of entering the Earth's atmosphere. Entry interface just 36 minutes away. So let's go back out to the Pacific Ocean west of Baja, where Daryl is on the USS Portland. Daryl?
That's right, Rob. Quick update for you on out here in the Pacific Ocean, just off the coast of Mexico. We have the small boats, the Navy small boats. All 6 boats are now in the water. They call them cricks. These are Navy boats that are inflatable, highly maneuverable. These are the ones that will actually put hands on the spacecraft in order to secure it and eventually get it tied to lines that brings it to the back of the ship and into the well deck. I want to talk a little bit about this location here today. This location in the Pacific, we're just about 5 miles away from the splashdown area. This was actually the backup location. Initially, this was supposed to happen off the coast of San Diego, California, but the weather forecast for that area called for a cold front that has moved in today, bringing with it 12-foot high seas, and those seas would have been too high to perform this operation, too high for the small boats for recovery. So Recovery Director Melissa Jones and the mission management team made the decision to back up and go to the backup location 300 miles south of San Diego, and that's where we find ourselves today with excellent weather in order to do this operation. As you look off into the sky, we're awaiting the second to last weather balloon release that we will have for the day. This weather data critical to the operation that is happening today, especially when it comes to the landing point of the crew module in the ocean, as well as the debris that goes with it. And that debris happens during the separation of the forward bay cover, which covers the parachutes, and then of course the parachutes and their hardware themselves. All of it together, they take in the winds, and you can feel the winds are picking up a little bit. That wind data will give us refined information and data in order to calculate exactly the landing spot. Now, we're not alone out here in the Pacific Ocean. We do have friends helping us today, and I want to take a shot now of a ship off in the distance that has joined us for today's operation, and that is the USS Montgomery. That ship is just a few miles away. As you can see it there, the USS Montgomery is providing security today. It is what the Navy calls a littoral ship. It specializes in close to shore combat. It's highly maneuverable in that space. Today, though, it has a peaceful mission, and that is to provide security to this location during splashdown. So for the public safety, to prevent boats from coming in and around the area, as well as provide additional eyes to the sky in tracking Orion crew module as it comes down. You can see a little bit of a bounce there, and that's caused by the seas that we are currently experiencing, which are in the range of 4 to 5 feet. Those seas, closely tracked by our NASA team with the wave management system, they are wave monitoring system rather. They are closely monitoring the seas for the moment where we bring the Orion capsule into the well deck. That is a highly choreographed and very dynamic operation. With the seas being what they are, when those waves come into the well deck, it can create a very dynamic environment with waves splashing back and forth inside the well deck, and teams on ropes trying to stabilize Orion to get it in just the right position here on the ship to then allow the well deck to drain out, have the Orion crew module put in place for its ride back to San Diego. That's the latest from here on the USS Portland out in the Pacific Ocean. Rob, will send it back to you.
Thank you very much, Daryl. We can report that all of Orion's systems are performing magnificently at this hour. At an altitude of just under 6,000 nautical miles, we did lock up on the tracking and data relay satellite system. So Orion's telemetry is now being processed through the TDRS network. This worked in concert with the Deep Space Network throughout the course of the mission. And now that we're on TDRS the rest of the way, we'll be able to have real-time data through our Tracking and Data Relay Satellite System constellation. We're just 11.5 minutes away from crew module, service module separation, the first major milestone on the road home in this final phase of Orion's 25.5-day mission. So let's take a visual and interactive look at what is coming up for Orion's journey back to Earth. Let's go back to NASA's Philip Hargrove at the moon board.
Thank you. Welcome back to the moon board. So we're going to talk a bit about the European Service Module and the Orion Crew Module. So as we know, these two systems have been working in tandem for a really long time, and that extends beyond just this Artemis 1 test flight for the past 26 days. So back in 2019 was when they were first integrated and pieced together. In 2020 was when they were fully assembled, including the solar panels and the protective fairings that protected them during launch. And then they were finally attached to the launch abort system and made it on top of SLS in October of 2021, prior to, of course, launch on November 16th, just 26 days ago. So we know that one of the primary test objectives of this mission is to make sure that this heat shield at the bottom of the crew module is able to safely bring our astronauts home from deep space. Now, for reference, when we bring astronauts home from the International Space Station, they're coming in at about 17,000 miles per hour. But today, Orion is coming in at 25,000 miles per hour. So we're coming in way hotter, way faster than we have done before. So we need some new heat shield technology. And we also need some additional hardware in order to slow us down and make that really happen. So let's talk about what that looks like. So this forward segment of the Orion Crew Module is called the forward bay cover. And this section is actually designed to completely be pulled off by 3 parachutes. So we have 3 parachutes that's going to pull that off. We have 2 drogue parachutes that are going to come out after that to slow us down a bit. We have 3 pilot parachutes that are going to pull our mains out. And then the stars of the show are 3 main parachutes that measure up to 116 feet in diameter each. So that gives us 11 parachutes that it takes to get us safely back home. So now that we know a little bit about what that hardware looks like, we can take a look at what that journey actually looked like. So as we know, we had a 7-day return transit. And as we approached the Earth, the service module and the crew module separated from one another. And the service module is going to burn up in the atmosphere above the Pacific Ocean. As that happens, the Orion Crew Module is going to use its reaction control thrusters to do a 180 flip and point that heat shield towards the atmosphere as we target re-entry. So a really important phase here is entry interface. This is at an altitude of about 400,000 feet, and this is where we define a lot of our entry conditions, such as the flight path angle and the velocity. Now this is really important because if you come in at too shallow of an angle, you may bounce right off the atmosphere and not even re-enter. But if you come in too steeply, you're going to experience forces that are beyond the design of your spacecraft. So what we're going to do today is actually toe the line and do a nominal skip maneuver where we're actually going to bounce off once. That allows us to have a steeper re-entry, and that actually increases the heating, allowing us to really test the capability of that heat shield. And we will also be minimizing the G loading, which leads to a softer ride for the Moonican and in the future for our Artemis astronauts. Now, once we do that, the atmosphere is going to slow us down pretty significantly, but we'll still be going over 300 miles per hour. And then we will slow down to 20 miles per hour after that sequence of 11 parachute deployments. Now, once we splash down west of California, we will have these red inflatables that will make sure that no matter what orientation we hit the water at, we will be right side up. And then the USS Portland is going to recover the capsule and bring it back to the U.S. Naval Station in San Diego. Now, there's a really large team comprised of U.S. Navy, Air Force, NASA, contractors who worked really hard to prepare for today. So I am super excited to see them welcome Orion home. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Philip. We are coming up on the critical stuff. leading up to Orion's return to Earth and its splashdown in the Pacific, just 7 minutes away now from crew module, service module separation. That European service module has worked like a champ throughout the course of the mission. The service module, which of course housed the solar arrays and all of the other propulsive functioning for Orion throughout the course of the mission, has been monitored in the European Service Module Control Room in Noordwijk in the Netherlands, where that team of flight controllers is eagerly awaiting the completion of the service module's work just a few minutes from now, when it will pyrotechnically separate from the crew module, leaving the crew module on its own. Entry interface is scheduled just 26 minutes from now. We'll be receiving reports from Flight Director Judd Freeling and his team of flight controllers throughout Orion's descent back into the Earth's atmosphere and through all of the parachute deployment sequence events leading up to splashdown that is scheduled at 11:39 and 42 seconds a.m. Central Time, 9:39 and 42 seconds a.m. Pacific Time. One thing worth noting is once Orion splashes down in the Pacific, it will stabilize in one of two positions, either pointed up, which is called Stable 1, or pointed down in Stable 2. The crew module uprighting system, known as the CMUS, deploys a series of 5 bright orange helium-filled bags on the top of the capsule that will either flip Orion right side up or keep it right side up in its Stable 1 position. Those 5 bags are packed in hard containers and installed atop the capsule inside the structural gussets between the parachutes and other equipment. They're inflated with helium gas that is stored in pressure vessels located close by the bags. Each bag has its own independent inflation system. The CMUS, or crew module uprighting system, initiates after landing and opens up a valve for helium to flow into those uprighting bags. It is considered, at least operational, that we have 4 out of those 5 bags to inflate to maintain a Stable 1 configuration for Orion to enable Navy divers to approach the vehicle. One of the first things that they'll be looking for is any leakage of toxic gas or toxic fuel from the vehicle. Assuming there is no such leak and that Orion appears to be in good shape, then they'll begin the methodical process of approaching the vehicle with other personnel and other Navy assets in order to begin the securing of Orion on the ocean for its towing back into the well deck of the USS Portland. We're under 4 minutes now until the crew module and service module separate from one another. We'll be standing by for all of that. You can see
it would be nice if we got to see that
animation that Orion is currently traveling just under 17,000 miles an hour, just under 4,000 miles away from Earth, and a hefty 254,000 miles from the moon, which of course was its target, in distant retrograde orbit, flying around the moon for its outbound powered flyby at the beginning of the mission to move to a distance of some 268,000 miles away from Earth, farther than any human-rated spacecraft designed to return to Earth had ever been designed to do, surpassing the distance record established 52 years ago during the Apollo 13 mission. Here in Mission Control, the flight dynamics folks and the guidance, navigation, and control folks have put up a graphic which is essentially the ground track for Orion as it will make its way across the southern Indian Ocean, passing the northwest coast of Australia en route to its ultimate trajectory that will carry it across the Pacific. It will be moving from south to north across the Pacific Ocean to the splashdown zone, almost a direct straight line towards the point of splashdown, which will be west of Baja California. Now just under 2 minutes until crew module, service module separation.
I am keeping an eye on the live feed just in case it comes back. It's been down for 15, 20 minutes now. So what do we got?
Now just 1 minute away from crew module, service module separation.
Got 40 minutes.
We'll be standing by for confirmation of that from the mechanical systems officer here at Mission Control.
Good morning, Daryl. And yes, Sky Tour is live tonight. I'm sure Mark told you. So after this stream, if you want to hit me up for the code, if you
30 seconds until separation. This will come at an altitude of 3,200 statute miles. Ten seconds until set.
obviously animated.
We have confirmation of separation. Orion flying on its own. Again, the separation occurred right on time at 11 a.m. and 11 seconds Central Time, with Orion 3,200 statute miles away from Earth. The service module, the European service module, has done its job.
It would have been good if they cut to ESA. Yeah, right? We got to watch their monitors. Yeah, the feed is down. I'm still looking at it. There's no live feed coming from the cameras aboard Orion, because I have it on my other screen. Good morning, good afternoon, like it is here now, technically. It's after 12 noon. On this
so with Orion
Sunday.
Flying on its own, we're about 18 and a half minutes away now from the point of entry interface, where Orion will be put through its paces. This is where the heat shield will begin to feel the effects of peak heating of 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit on the heat shield, and the beginning of 2 blackout periods where the plasma around the vehicle will build up such that it will block data and communications between mission control and the spacecraft itself.
We're going to find out how that new heat shield does. He said it would reach up to 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's coming in at 25,000 miles per hour. Now, when there's a crew on there, I think he mentioned it'll be more like 17 or 18,000. So they're pushing it. Obviously they want to push this heat shield because that is the primary mission of Artemis 1. You could look it up.
Orion continues to fly smoothly on. All of its systems in excellent shape.
Obviously, there's other mission
Less than 17 minutes until entry interface.
But it's all about that heat shield. That is critical. Especially when they put a crew on board. So that heat shield is the key. And still no, obviously there's not going to be a feed anymore. We're done with that. Now it's all going to be from the ground. Hopefully they have cameras in place.
And the crew module raise burn that we thought was not going to be needed is being conducted. Just basically a fine-tuning of the orientation and the angle, a 16-second firing of the thrusters, and a good burn reported, 8.12 feet per second, and a change in velocity. So the raise burn was executed. That will further fine-tune Orion's path at the proper azimuth or orientation where the heat shield is at its optimum angle to begin the repulsion of the heat that will build up around the heat shield at the time that we begin entry interface just about 15.5 minutes from now. So the crew module service module separation went off as planned. The raise maneuver was executed at 11:03 and 41 seconds Central Time.
Some nice waves out there, I'll tell you that.
Again, the raise maneuver was executed. Orion now flying at the proper orientation for entry interface into the Earth's atmosphere. Entry interface is scheduled at 11:20 and 14 seconds a.m. Central Time at an altitude of 400,000 feet. At that point, Orion will be traveling 24,000.
But if you read at the mission goals, the priority, the critical priority of this mission were the heat shields. And hopefully we'll be able to see with cameras on the ground or from the helicopters the fireball effect from re-entry.
Flight controllers reporting a solid lock with the tracking and data relay satellite system, receiving data that's being processed through the TDRS network. Just a reminder that after we pass into the Earth's atmosphere, at the speed at which we're going and with the temperatures expected to build up very quickly for peak heating around the heat shield of Orion, we will begin the first of two blackout periods, the first of which is scheduled to begin at 11:20 and 16 seconds a.m. Central Time and will last about 4 minutes and 48 seconds. At that time, entry guidance, which has been stored on board, pre-programmed commanding for Orion to continue to point its way toward the splashdown zone, will take over. The first blackout period should end around 11:25 and 4 seconds Central Time. That will set the stage for the skip entry, basically the maneuver that will enable Orion to dip into the Earth's atmosphere and skip back out of the Earth's atmosphere and dip back into the Earth's atmosphere like a rock, a flat rock on a pond. That will continue to dissipate energy and heat on the spacecraft, and is a maneuver that data will be gathered for to try to bring in multiple splashdown sites for crewed missions in the future. The second of the two blackout periods is scheduled to begin at 11:29 and 3 seconds a.m. Central Time, and that will last for about 2 minutes and 50 seconds till about 11:31 and change. That'll be the final blackout period, after which we should lock up solidly for the remaining 8 minutes or so until splashdown.
Which is only a half hour away approximately. Wow. Wow. Amazing. So what's up, Big Dog Andy, Daryl, of course, Genghis?
This is Mission Control Houston, 12 minutes away from entry interface. Everything is going by the book so far here in Mission Control, very quiet on the loops. Entry Flight Director Judd Freeling and his team of flight controllers watching carefully over their data as they oversee the arrival of Orion for its splashdown site west of Baja, California. Time to splash down 31 minutes.
So far, not that much snow going on, but we're expecting almost a half a foot of snow here today. Boy. And as I mentioned earlier, Mark is live tonight.
Less than 11 minutes now until entry. During the period of the two blackouts, and even after we have emerged from the second of the two blackouts, Orion, through a series of pre-programmed commands stored on board, will conduct a series of roll reversals. This is very much like space shuttles conducted during their entries back to Earth, where it will roll to the left and then back to the right, banking roll reversals that will bleed off excess energy, excess inertia, and speed, and control the thermal characteristics of the vehicle as it heads towards its subsonic point, where it will go under Mach 1. It will go subsonic at about 11:34 and 55 seconds a.m. Central Time, some 5 minutes before splashdown. If everything goes as planned, Orion will reach an altitude of 40,000 feet at 11:35 a.m. Central Time, just about a minute before forward bay cover chute deploy begins. The series of 11 chutes, 3 that will pull the forward bay cover off of the top of the crew module.
That is funny.
That'll be followed by the deployment of
that
drogue
big
chutes,
dog.
and then the 3 large main parachutes, 3 orange and white parachutes. That'll be the moment.
Believe it or not, I've got my snowblower near my front door.
And now 28.5 minutes until splashdown.
Unfortunately, there is bad weather down south. The possibility of isolated tornadoes. There could be a blizzard in the Dakotas. All the way throughout the central part of the country is going to have some interesting weather for the next 24 to 48 hours. So if you live down in Louisiana, Arkansas, Alabama, eastern Texas, you really need to watch your weather. And points north, snow.
Orion is approaching the northwest coast of Australia. 27.5 minutes until splashdown. We're just 8 minutes away from the point at which Orion will dip into the Earth's atmosphere and begin what basically is a hellish entry, where temperatures around the spacecraft will raise to about 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. That's half as hot as the outer surface of the sun.
That's an interesting tidbit. It's reaching half the temperature of the outside of the sun. That's unbelievable.
And correction, Orion is actually traveling over the South Pacific at the moment, moving from south to north. Just 7.5 minutes until entry interface.
25 minutes. Approximately the splashdown. You know we're going to be seeing the cameras. Oh my God.
And this view from a camera inside the cabin of Orion, this doesn't look like much at the moment, but it will soon when it shows the forward bay cover jettisoning and the initiation of the parachute deployment system. Entry interface less than 6.5 minutes from now.
Pretty cool. Camera from inside. Obviously, there's a reflection, but...
Just to recap, the crew module, the Orion crew module, separated from the European service module about 14.5 minutes ago, right on target as it was planned, and a short raise maneuver, a 16-second firing of Orion's thrusters, oriented the vehicle, raising it just a tad so that its heat shield was at the proper orientation in the direction of travel to begin entry interface in about 5 minutes at an altitude of 400,000 feet above the Earth. Orion is making its way south to north across the Pacific Ocean.
Big sack.
Currently traveling at 23,000 miles an hour.
By the way, that's Leroy's nickname. I just want to make that clear.
We're about 5 minutes away from entering the first of the 2 blackout periods, which will last about 4 minutes and 48 seconds.
All right, hopefully they're going to get some...
A journey that began
so we need some
with
cameras
the
from the
power
ground.
of the launch
of the
of the Space
helicopters.
Launch System 25.5 days ago, about to reach its final minutes in the searing heat of reentry, where temperatures around Orion will build up to 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Just under 4 minutes until entry interface.
So the most critical part of this whole mission really is coming in 4 minutes. Re-entry burn. The heat shields. And it's too bad they don't have a camera capable of picking that up. The actual burn and how it looks. That would be amazing. Because it's going to look like a fireball. How could it not at 4,000 or 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit? Oh my gosh. Can you imagine
Once again, at entry interface, which we will reach about 3 minutes from now, Orion will be at an altitude of 400,000 feet, traveling just under 25,000 miles an hour, with a range to splashdown of 3,659 statute miles.
Can you imagine being an astronaut on board when this has got a crew on it, knowing that this sucker's going to
Within seconds after reaching entry interface, we'll begin the first of the 2 blackout periods that will last just under 5 minutes, about 4 minutes and 48 seconds.
Now, they said it won't come in at 25,000 miles per hour when there's a crew on board. But still, even if it's 17, 18, whatever it is, 1,000 miles per hour, that it's going to heat up, you got to be a little concerned about the reentry burn. You just have to. It's a human condition. I might be saying, oh, this is great, but I'd be worried like heck in my mind. Let's just get through this. Let's just get through this. Let's get this splashdown. It cannot. That's got to be uneasy, to say the least, when there's a crew on board.
And here's the ground track for Orion as it passes well to the west of South America. We're just 1 minute 44 seconds away from entry interface, moving from south to north to its splashdown target west of Baja California.
If it was Chantal, she'd say, please don't let me look at the window. Just, I don't want to be near the window when this happens. I don't want to see that glow. I could just imagine her reaction because she does not even like flying. Imagine putting Chantal near that. But Chantal, look at the view. It's awesome. And then I could see it.
Just 1 minute away from entry interface.
Get the splashdown done, and then bam, right in the head. That's what you get, Bill, for doing that when we were coming back.
And this
down.
view from the cabin camera, looking out of the upper hatch of Orion, you can see the limb of the Earth. We're going to be losing all of the data here shortly once we enter into the Earth's atmosphere and begin the first of the 2 blackout periods.
Look at that as it's coming in. Look at that. We're going to lose the signal in a
Standing
minute.
by for entry interface and the first of the 2 blackout periods.
Yep, the blackouts. Now, obviously, these cameras are probably recording. Reorientation.
We are now in the entry phase. Entry interface has begun. Entry interface at 400,000 feet. Orion traveling just under 25,000 miles an hour.
Oh, look at that. Look at it heating up. Oh, there it goes.
We've gone into the first blackout period. This is a visualization based on what should be happening at the moment, where the temperatures around the heat shield are reaching about 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. This is the moment of truth for Orion. We should be coming out of this first blackout period just under 4 minutes from now. Orion should be traveling about 23,326 miles an hour at the moment.
Now remember, they're blind.
Range to splashdown, 3,125 statute miles.
They've lost communication. It is a blackout.
Again, this is a visualization of what should be happening with Orion at the moment, although we are in a blackout period that should end about 3 minutes and 15 seconds from now.
The longest 3 minutes and 15
Once
seconds.
we emerge from this first blackout period, we'll conduct the skip entry maneuver that will further dissipate heat and energy and begin a very, very dramatic reduction in the velocity of Orion as it approaches its splashdown site.
Obviously, they have satellites and other telemetry that can pick up that it's still up there, moving. But as far as direct communication and data coming in, blackout. Like I said, what a long 3 minutes. Imagine sitting there, you're freaking out. And
Clocks here in mission control showing the sequence of events yet to come. The first blackout period to end about 2 minutes and 18 seconds from now.
And there's another blackout period.
The second of the 2 blackout periods would begin
29.
about 6 minutes from now.
29.
For about 7 minutes, followed by the jettisoning of the forward bay cover. That will begin the sequence of the deployment of the parachutes. First, a pair of drogue chutes, 3 pilot parachutes that will then pull 3 main parachutes to begin the final moments of Orion's descent back to its splashdown in the Pacific Ocean.
You can see the ship is rolling in the sea. Look at that. Ooh. He's not saying anything that I'm not saying, Amol. I'm actually saying right before he says what I'm saying, he's saying. So he's repeating what I say. How do you like that, Amole? I could just see Amol. He's probably saying, I
1 minute to go until we come out of this first blackout period. When we emerge from this first blackout period, we'll be at an altitude of 274,000 feet, traveling just under 17,000 miles an hour with a range to splashdown of 2,000 statute miles.
For real, he's got a script. But I'm thinking, if you ever seen South Park, Terrence and Phillip, how their mouths move, that's what I probably look like in your mind. Like I'm one of those characters, just opening and closing in the mouth, like a cartoon character. All right, NASA, can we start seeing some ground
Standing by for a reacquisition of signal.
feed, please, toward like the sky soon? Whether it's from the helicopters or ground-based ships, let's get this going. Andy, I know you're messaging me, but I can't pull up because I have everything on my screens. I cannot bring up Skype. I can do it on my phone, but I can't do it anywhere else. My monitors are cluttered. Yeah, I saw your image with the glass. I give that image to Amole. Actually, it's too bad NASA doesn't have the coordination and organization. Uh-oh.
And we have data from Orion.
Hold
Orion
on,
out
I'm
of the
getting
blackout
images from
period.
the other camera. Let's see if they go to it. I'm getting it on the other one. What's going on here? There it is.
Flight Dynamics reports that Orion is right on the money, coming right down the pike.
Nice.
A good view out of the cabin camera, looking out of the upper hatch of Orion.
I'm going to shut up now, Amol.
We should be performing the skip entry maneuver momentarily. Good communications established with Orion.
Out in 2 minutes. Maybe less.
The second blackout period to begin about 2 minutes from now.
Oh. See what I said?
Orion is at the apogee of the skip entry maneuver, beginning the second in a series of role reversals, again banking maneuvers to bleed off excess inertia and to dissipate heat around the spacecraft.
I'm sure Mo would rather have the SpaceX person right now on the screen, right, Amo?
The start of the second blackout period, about 1 minute and 13 seconds from now, will come at an altitude of 270,000 feet, with Orion traveling about 16,400 miles an hour, range to splashdown less than 1,000 miles.
Okay, the blackout's officially starting now.
Coming up on the start of the second blackout period. We should be in that second blackout period right now. Orion approaching a velocity of 20 times the speed of sound. If all goes as planned, we should be out of the blackout period with a solid lockup on the vehicle at 11:31 and 46 seconds a.m. Central Time. This is Mission Control Houston, the airborne WB-57, one of the airborne assets to track Orion's return to Earth, has visual acquisition of the vehicle. We should be coming out of this second and final blackout about 30 seconds from now. And helos flying off the deck of the USS Portland now have a visual acquisition of Orion as well. At an altitude of 174,000 feet, traveling 12,600 miles an hour, range to splashdown 288 statute miles.
Here we go. The ground cameras are up. Here we go.
This view on the deck of the USS Portland. And there is a view out of the cabin camera of Orion as it continues a series of role reversals. We have data back from the spacecraft. Flight Dynamics reports Orion straight and narrow on a true course toward its splashdown site. Forward bay covered jettisoning less than 3.5 minutes from now. (150,000 feet off the ocean). Orion now traveling at Mach 10.
Imagine that ride home. Can you imagine the ride if you were on there?
Orion's speed now down to Mach 6. Two minutes until forward bay cover jettisoning. Orion 100,000 feet now.
Looks like the heat shield did its job.
The spacecraft about to go subsonic. "45 seconds until forward bay cover jettisoning."
4 minutes to splashdown.
Orion now at 50,000 feet. Forward bay cover jettisoning pyros are armed.
We need some ground cameras too.
25,000 feet.
When the parachutes are deployed.
Drogues have been deployed.
Now that is cool. 9 more to go. 9 more shoots. There's 11 total.
2 good drogue shoots reported by the recovery team out in the Pacific. The descent rate is right on the money. Orion's velocity now down to 282 miles an hour. Wow. Range to splashdown 1.5 miles. 10,000 feet now.
Well, now the other chutes got to come out. There they are.
And we're on mains. 5,000 feet.
Now, technically,
reefing in progress.
2 out of the 3 need to work. Nice. Look at that.
Three good main chutes for Orion. We have 3 fully inflated main chutes. Time to splash down 90 seconds.
Wow.
Perfect descent rate reported.
There we go.
And there it is, high over the Pacific, America's new ticket to ride to the moon and beyond now in view. Orion under its chutes descending toward splashdown.
Wow.
Orion in the perfect orientation for splashdown, just seconds away.
Wow.
(1,000 feet). Good descent rate.
The heat shield looks pretty decent just by looking at it. You could see it's on the bottom. It's charred up. But looks like that's
500 feet.
There it goes.
Splashdown.
Nice.
From Tranquility Base to Taurus Littrow to the tranquil waters of the Pacific, the latest chapter of NASA's journey to the moon comes to a close. Orion, back on Earth.
Nice.
Unofficial splashdown time, 11:40 and 30 seconds a.m. Central Time. At a mission elapsed time of 25 days, 10 hours, 54 minutes, 50 seconds. That's unofficial. Splashing down off the coast of Baja, California. The crew module uprighting system now being inflated for...
They didn't show, it was 11, Amol.
For the bags currently being inflated.
There was 11 in total. They didn't show them all.
And we have a report that Orion is stable 1, upright, the way it should be.
Nice. No, it's failed NASA for not showing
Once again, splashdown occurring at 11:40 a.m. Central Time, 9:40 a.m. Pacific Time, west of Baja, California, after a textbook entry for the Orion spacecraft bringing its 25-and-a-half-day mission to an end.
Wow. Now they got to make sure there's nothing leaking before they approach it and get near it. Any hazardous material. The main thing is it's back in one piece, and the heat shields did its job. That was the major concern.
Orion's recovery beacon is on. We have confirmation that 4 out of the 5 crew module uprighting system bags have fully inflated, standing by for word on the 5th one. But Orion is in great shape, stable 1, just in the orientation that had been expected.
Yeah, right. Let's go to Baja. I agree with that one. Now, the next big thing is SpaceX with the Starship and doing their first orbital launch. That's very important. And that should be in January. It was supposed to be this month. It was actually hopeful it would happen in November, and then they were hoping December, but it's not going to happen. So maybe in January with Starship.
This is Mission Control Houston. Once again, the Orion spacecraft, having completed a journey of 1.4 million miles, bobbing gently in the Pacific Ocean. 4 out of its 5 crew module uprighting system bags have been deployed. We're standing by for word on the 5th. However, irrespectful of that, it is in stable 1 configuration, in good shape according to the recovery team. And we are now receiving word that all 5 of the crew module uprighting system bags are fully inflated. So that's exactly what we had hoped for. Orion safely bobbing up and down in the Pacific Ocean.
Now they have a cabin camera. AMO, here's something. Here's something you may not want to see. Oh shit, that just reminded me, I gotta send something. This is from a host from last night. You want to see it? Thank you for being a great producer and station manager. Ha! How about that, Amole? I gotta do something now. Speaking of the station, I forgot to send somebody a linky. Ooh. And I can't see chat right now.
This is Mission Control Houston. You're looking at the Orion spacecraft that splashed down about 6.5 minutes ago at 11:40 a.m. Central Time, 9:40 a.m. Pacific Time.
I can imagine them all saying.
We are estimating that it splashed down around 5 nautical miles away from the USS Portland.
I know what you're thinking about.
The recovery ship and Navy boats and divers will be approaching the vehicle before long. The spacecraft is in what is called a stable 1 configuration, upright, just the way we had expected it to be. 5 perfectly inflated crew module uprighting system bags, maintaining a nice gentle configuration for Orion. First of the Navy helicopters now approaching the vehicle. And here in Mission Control, some of Orion's systems no longer needed are being powered down. Many of them will stay powered up for the next 2 hours while we conduct a series of test objectives to characterize the thermal conditioning of the spacecraft. That will be important for future data for crewed missions to determine how long the crews can remain comfortable inside a vehicle returning from the moon. We also will be conducting tests of the beacon and SARSAT system for maintaining tracking of the spacecraft, for recovery forces that will be approaching the spacecraft in the future. And coming up in the next hour and a half will be the reactivation of an ammonia boiler system that will provide cooling in the spacecraft, as it will when crews return from their missions on board Orion.
The fuck is going on with the camera person? Being blocked. I mean, this is where SpaceX would not get it wrong. This is a fail, Amol. That's a fail. I mean, for something like this, you have to have the equipment ready to go. Like an image like that. You've got to have high-res imagery. Not this bullshit that they're using in some sequences. Fired. You are fired. Oh, I think we can see her just fine, Amol. So now it's about the recovery and getting it on board. They say it's a little tricky. You know, they got 4 to 5 foot seas going on, swells.
This is Mission Control Houston. Reports from the USS Portland indicate that the first of 2 Navy helicopters flying in the vicinity of Orion, which is about 5 nautical miles away from the ship, indicate no damage to the spacecraft and no hazardous fuel leaking from the spacecraft. A good view of the helicopters and the initial Navy boats that will be approaching Orion a short time from now. Once again, the splashdown occurring at 11:40 a.m. Central Time, 9:40 a.m. Pacific Time.
Now that's a better camera. And just as I said it, now again, the signal, look at it. Listen, tell them, can we connect to Starlink? Elon will help us up with a good solid connection. And that's another big mistake. Another big mistake from a camera perspective. When you have 2 objects on the screen, the camera, if it's on autofocus, is going to focus in on that closer object. See how, and it's going to ruin the background. You cannot have anything close to the camera in view because it's going to mess up the overall view. It's crazy. Get that out of the way. That's the best place they could put a camera? Really? Now, obviously, it has to stay in view for a couple of seconds so it can lock in and autofocus on that. Unless they don't have the autofocus on its manual set for the distance. But my gosh. Does anybody know how to work a camera? Oh my God. I'd fire myself. Wow, look at the movement of the ship, though. Oh, what was that? He's just getting low. Because they're about to move in. It could be happening like right now. They're about to move in. No. Not now. What? Let me mute. So Mark is live tonight, by the way.
This is Mission Control
she's back.
Houston.
Let me mute.
Orion in the Pacific Ocean, having splashed down at 11:40 a.m. Central Time, 9:40 a.m. Pacific Time, around 5 nautical miles or so from the USS Portland. A textbook entry for the vehicle. On the USS Portland at this hour, my colleague Daryl Nell from the Kennedy Space Center, who's with the Exploration Ground Systems Recovery Team. Daryl, how did it look to you? It certainly looked textbook to us here.
I'd say that's a great description, Rob. Perfectly landed here in the Pacific Ocean, and that's been confirmed by the operations manager that I just spoke to. Watching it from the deck as an observer, we have, as you can see, some broken clouds in the sky, like right around 3,000 feet. But we saw those 3 full main parachutes pop out. It was a beautiful sight, probably just about, several thousand feet in the sky. And then we watched that slow descent as the Orion crew module made its way down to the Pacific Ocean. Saw the splash. And then, of course, the assets aboard the USS Portland here immediately started making their way towards the splashdown site. And as you see live now, they are close to being next to the capsule. Now, the helicopters that you see flying there, those are MH-60s. We have 2 of them in the air, and they are right now gathering high-quality, high-definition imagery of the capsule in the water. There's a spotter aboard. We have photographers as well. The doors are completely open on both sides of the helicopters, and so you can see them flying a circular track around the splashdown location. They have marked, if you can see it, you can see what looks like smoke coming off the location just to the left there. That is the boats having marked location where some of the debris has come down, the debris that was part of the separation event, the part of the parachutes opening event. So you have the sabot as well as the lid from the parachutes. All of that is being tracked by the Sasquatch team, and the Navy boats are marking that with floatable smoke grenades. All of that hardware the team wants to recover because there's valuable information and data in it. The helicopters will be out for another 20 minutes gathering imagery. You can see one of them getting very close to the crew module. There is an GSS camera, ultra high definition, 8K, which is gathering imagery. We are currently on course to go right by the splashdown location. So we are right about 3.5 miles and closing. We are going to a point that's going to be 1 mile out. That's our next waypoint. 1 mile out from the splashdown location. One of the things we're waiting for is for ammonia boil off. And that's why the Navy boats are not yet next to the capsule. We're still going to wait that out. The amount of time that that's going to take is has not been determined. They have allowed for as much as 2 hours. The ammonia on the capsule is used for cooling purposes. To keep.
Anyway, the main thing, I'm not waiting for 2 hours because I have work to do soon. But the main thing is successful splashdown off of Baja And in the next few days, we'll be getting the data and more understanding on how successful it really was, especially with that heat shield. In preparation for the next mission, Artemis 2, in 2 years, hopefully, where they will have a crew on board. And it's going to do a similar trajectory around the moon and then come back to Earth. Then Artemis 3, saying 4 years, is when they plan on having a crew land on the moon. So, yes, transhumanism party is at 4. Mark is at 6. Dead air is at 8. So I've got to work 6 hours tonight, Amon. And I didn't get much sleep, as you know. I'm not sleep last night. I'm pretty tired. So I need to maybe take a little power nap before I work. And then I also got the possibility of snow going on. Oh yeah, it's starting to cover now. You can't see it, but it's sticking. It's not coming down heavy, but it's sticking. So the first real snowfall, and it's not even technically winter yet, but it's starting right now. The snow is falling and a light dusting right now, but we're expecting 3 to 5 inches today. The temperature is 32 degrees. So who the heck knows how much snow we're gonna get? It sucks to be us with the snow. Anyway, again, it was great to see this today. It looks like everything went as planned. And now the data, they'll collect the data and do what they need to do to prepare for Artemis 2. Because that's, when you think about it, it's going from a test flight right to a crew being on board for the next mission. And the same thing happening. Splashdown with a crew. I mean, they're just jumping right into the next phase. And then the third is landing on the moon with a crew. So, I mean, they're pushing the envelope. Now, SpaceX, and this is what I'll be keeping a track on because this is important. And I'm going to just search it really quick. This is the next big thing. Now, this I don't believe that it's finally going to send it to orbit in December. I have to get more information on that. Now, this is 3 days ago. But I didn't think it was going to launch in December. Maybe they are. But this is the next big thing right here. Is SpaceX sending this up. Now, I can't trust YouTube, so let's just do this. Starship orbital launch schedule. That's what I thought. That's what I thought. All that was bullshit. So it looks like it's going to be on January 31st, 2023. From the SpaceX launch facility in Texas. So everything you've just seen on YouTube is bullshit. It looks like it's going to happen late January, early February. And this is important. This is really important because it's going to work in tandem. They're going to work together. NASA, SpaceX, to get refueling. There's so many components, supplies, crewed missions. They're going to work together. So this is very important. And this is pretty cool. Watch the launch video. And there it is. 1 month, 20 days. So all that other stuff is bullshit. It's projected to launch January 2023. Unknown payload. But anyway, that's what is really important next, as from this point of view. I see what you're writing, Amo. But anyway, that's going to be the next big thing. And then Space Dragon, you know, with crewed missions going up to the ISS. You'll see that. Resupplies. SpaceX missions resupplying or putting up satellites. Those are all good, but the next, can you imagine in 4 years, maybe 5, what it's going to be like to see a crew landing on the moon again? And you know all the conspiracy freaks will be saying, oh, this is staged, this is Hollywood. Of course they will. It's not real. They wouldn't even believe what we just seen was real. And let's not even talk about the FEs. I don't even like to mention the phrase. Do you know what an FE is? Figure it out. But you can imagine. Everybody, I don't want to say everybody, billions of people are going to be watching that. If it happens. Hopefully it's going to happen in 4 to 5 years. But with budget constraints and delays and technical problems and weather, you know, all the other stuff connected, politics. Hopefully it's going to launch in 4 to 5 years for the crew mission to the moon. But like I said, let's see how this all progresses. Now, again, SpaceX is very important. That is critical. And it's just going to look massive on the launch pad. It's going to look massive. He hasn't done well so far with the landing of the Dragon. Of the Starship. I just hope that they've ironed out those issues. Because they make it sound like one successful landing. Yay, we solved it. Well, I want to see a pattern, a consistency of landing it back down before we get too excited about the Starship. And I'm sure they'll get it sorted out. But that's one, and they've been testing in Texas. But they got to get that shit sorted out. Now, I don't think that's so much concerned about that right now. They just want to put it into orbit and then get it back just like this happened and run all the tests necessary. It's all about testing, data collection. But it's going to be interesting to see that. Now, don't get me wrong. It's nice to see SpaceX go up like it did last night. And, oh, you missed it. I've seen that a dozen times already. It's nothing new. It's always cool to watch. When the reusables come back and land, it's cool. Don't get me wrong. It's cool. But I think now we need to take that next step. The new challenges like this. the Artemis program, and Starship. That's the next big steps. It's cool to see when they put up, how many Starlink satellites are up there now? Thousands. Amol likes to watch the chick, just so you'll know. But yeah, we need to now start to think about moving forward, because now it's about contracting work, getting paid to put satellites up there and other missions from other governments. It's about money now, and they have to. They need to do that for funding. They have to. But I think a lot of people are saying, okay, let's go. You've been talking about the moon, let's go. You've been talking about Starship, let's go. Let's take it to the next phase. And we'll see how, like I said, we'll see how this all progresses. But hopefully it will launch late January, early February, the orbital launch of the Starship, because that's going to be an important test. And that's about it. So it depends how I feel. I may be back later on tonight after 10. There's a lot of work this afternoon. So I hope everybody enjoyed this presentation of what happened today with the Orion splashdown. Hope you all have a great rest of your day, afternoon, morning, wherever